It's time now for a special edition of Fromm and Fuller. Al Fromm, former political advisor to President Bill Clinton, and Craig Fuller, former political advisor to both Presidents Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush. Good morning, all. Al, I'd like to start with you this morning. This is a kind of a critical moment in American history and American politics with the jury in New York finding former President Trump guilty on 34 counts. What's your take?
Thanks a lot for checking in with us. Well, first of all, let me just say it's a sad day. Whenever you have somebody who is president and could be president again, convicted of 34 felonies, that isn't a good thing for our country, and it's not a good thing for our democracy. What I would say is it's really too early to judge the political impact, though logic would tell us that it's going to have one, and probably even it could hurt Trump significantly. But we all know, and we've been talking about this for the last 4 years, that every time we expected Trump to go down because he did something bad, he's been Teflon Don, and the normal rules haven't applied. But it's interesting because he's really, for his whole life, not just his public life, he's lived on the edge. A lot of people believe he's gone over the edge, but by a combination of stalling and legal tactics and intimidation, he's gotten away with usually gotten away with what he's done. Started to catch up this year because he's had the two judgments against him in the Eugene Carroll case and in the fraud case. But still, basically he gets away. He's always gotten away. But at least I can't help but think this is going to be a little bit different. This one is different. We did our show yesterday, but today is different than yesterday. Mm-hmm. Yesterday, Donald Trump was the defendant. He had the presumption of innocence. Today, that presumption is gone. It's changed. He's a convicted felon, convicted of 34 felonies by a jury of his peers, which is really important. Not a political opponent, but ordinary New Yorkers who heard the facts and convicted him. Think about how momentous that is. Here's a former president who's convicted by his peers of essentially cheating, of trying to rig an election, as he always likes to say. He's the one who tried to rig it by illegally influencing the election of 2016. Personally, I was struck by how quickly the jury came to a verdict with 34 counts, and they're pretty intricate and complicated. And so what that tells me is there was little doubt in the minds of the jury that he was guilty because they just didn't have time to go over individual counts. They just basically said he did the whole scheme. Let me just try to make three very brief points to kick us off. One, I call it the Al Capone parallel. Trump is accused of what most observers think are much more serious crimes. He's been indicted for them. But like Al Capone, he got convicted on what people thought was the least powerful of the cases. I mean, Capone got, went through all of his crimes and murders, and he gets convicted of tax evasion. Trump, but the great irony is this hush money scheme of Trump was, it's not to the degree of trying to foment a revolution to block an election, but it was really for the same purpose, to alter the outcome of an election, to cheat. So that struck me. The second thing that we mentioned yesterday that I think will have a long-term impact, even if it hasn't sunk in, and if everybody in the world wasn't watching the trial, and that's the sleaze of Trump world. I mean, my God, those lowlifes that were his life. I mean, I just can't believe over time, and with 6 months to have it pounded in people's head, that they're going to want a president who, you know, uh, whose world is porn stars and sleazy lawyers and tabloid publishers and all that kind of stuff. It's unbecoming the United States of America. But the third thing, and this is the most significant politically, and I mentioned this yesterday, the Ron Brownstein piece about where Trump's support in the polls is coming from this time. And Nate Cohn in the New York Times, I assume it was in the print edition, I got it last night, did a very important analysis, and I'd urge our viewers to go to go find it. You know, he said Trump's lead, particularly in the swing states, this time isn't just because of MAGA people and Trump loyalists. It's because he's doing very well among people who usually vote Democratic, young voters. I mean, relatively well. I mean, it doesn't mean he's winning them, but he's certainly cutting his losses dramatically among young voters and African Americans and Hispanics, and most importantly, what he calls irregular voters, voters who don't vote all the time. I won't go through all the numbers, but these are the voters who are most likely to be affected by a conviction. The Trump loyalists are going to be with him. We've heard, and I'm sure Craig will talk about all his Republican buddies who have jumped to attack the legal system for doing the right thing. But in the Times Siena poll that's gotten so much attention in the swing states, 21% of Trump's young supporters said they'd back Biden if he were convicted. Only 2% of voters 65 or older said that. Similarly, 27% of black voters who backed Trump in the poll would have flipped to Biden, compared to 5% of white voters. Now, whether this will actually trigger that change or not, that could really be danger for him. And I haven't seen the full commentary, but I understand Karl Rove did a similar commentary where he talked about the numbers in the swing states. And as we've talked about for the last 6 months, we're talking about margins of 0.5%, 1%, 2% in those swing states. So even a 2 or 3% change could cost Trump the election. Now, having said that, Biden has a job to do too. And David Axelrod really said it right last night. Biden has to make his case to be president. And for dealing with what Craig always talks about, the issues that concern people. Because this conviction may make people think Trump shouldn't be the president, but they have such doubts about Biden that Biden has to do what Craig and Ronald Reagan did in 1980 and say, yeah, I can be your president for another 4 years. If he does, this conviction may have made a big difference.
Craig, what's your thought on this?
First of all, it is a sad day. It's a historic day, one like no other. No other president has been convicted of a felony, let alone 34 of them. It had more impact on me than I thought it would. I kind of expected a hung jury. It's a complicated case, and clearly 12 people sat and listened to all the facts, and it did not take them long to come to a unanimous conclusion. I align myself with those across the country who think our legal system actually worked. There's going to be an opportunity for an appeal. That's part of the process. But I think the legal system worked. And I honestly think my Republican friends who rush out with their Trump organization talking points and claim that this was somehow rigged, I'd like them to show me their talking points that they would have used had he been acquitted. Because somehow, I think had he been acquitted, the talking points would be dramatically different, praising the jurors and the court system. It's very hard for me to believe, as I watch some of the reactions, that thoughtful people who are lawyers, Marco Rubio, sits there and says that this was, a horrible thing to have happened. This is somebody a few years ago, Marco Rubio, thought Donald Trump was unfit to be president. And yet he wants to gloss over this. Incredibly, Governor Hogan, former Governor Hogan, when he said we should respect the decision, he gets a comment out of the Trump organization that Governor Hogan's campaign is over, as if they're like forgetting that this could determine which party is in the majority in the Senate. So it's certainly raised the temperature. It's certainly raised tensions. But I am completely in agreement with Al. The people I'm interested in learning more about are those who were leaning towards Trump or undecided about for whom they were going to vote and how they read this. Because I don't think Marco Rubio makes a bit of difference, frankly. These Republicans who want to rush out and be on the news programs, those voters in the middle have seen through them for a long time. And I also agree that there just seems no way that this result, 34 convictions, felony convictions, there's no way this could have a positive impact on Trump with those key voters in the middle, undecided, in the key states. The Biden organization, again, I agree, the Biden organization has to make their case for Biden's reelection. But I think people now, in a way, will pay more attention. So the Biden communication system has got to rise to the challenge. But it has an opening that it would not have had there been an acquittal, maybe not even have had there been a hung jury. So this is a very important moment. I think it's a defining moment for the campaign, in this campaign. And we'll look back and say, after May 30th, things were different. I don't know what the outcome is going to be, but I certainly think that this changed the direction in some way, especially for the key voters that have not yet made up their mind.
I wanted to keep this kind of short and sweet, but Al, do you, in the time remaining, is there any other thoughts you want to quickly pass along?
Yeah, there's a couple. Trump probably won't go to jail, even though I've heard prosecutors say that somebody who has shown no remorse, who has been cited for contempt, essentially contempt for breaking his gag order as many times as he has, in behaving toward the judge the way he has. 30% of these kind of cases have jail time, and somebody who acted like Trump would, if his name weren't Donald Trump, would be in jail. I don't think that'll happen. But let me just make two quick other points. I mentioned that one of the reasons Trump's doing better in the polls is because he's doing better in among African Americans and Hispanics. I think Joe Klein wrote about this last night. There's a real racist element to Trump that came out in this trial, in his attacks on the DA, before that on the Attorney General of New York. It's sort of ironic that two black prosecutors were responsible for him, the charges in the two big cases. But that may, over the next 6 months, make it much more difficult for him to make gains among black voters, and the same for Hispanics.
Greg, any last thoughts?
My mind goes to a few things that are coming. Number one, will anybody who's really been campaigning for vice president step away? Is there someone who's going to say, wait a second, maybe I'm not that interested in the association with a convicted felon? Number two, what about the money? The chairman of the Blackstone Group announced the other day, he's a very thoughtful guy, I've known him a long time, that he was going to support Trump. Donald Trump is not fit to serve on his board of directors. He could not get on the board of directors. Is this individual still going to give his political support and financial support to Donald Trump? Then you've got the debate. My advice to President Biden is the classic one. If somebody's digging themselves a hole, don't let them keep shoveling. The questioners are going to go after Trump. Biden should say, that's his issue. My issues are the following, and talk about what matters to the American people. But the debate is critical. Then you have the convention, and that's going to be, I think, a parade of horrors. The only people that Trump will allow to speak are the ones that plead the complete loyalty to him. Again, he's got a convention is used, and Al knows this, so a convention is used to broaden your base, to bring the American people together behind your campaign for a general election. I don't think Trump can do that for 1 minute. I think you also have to consider the convention. He's going to go to that convention looking for a coronation. He's going to, stir up his own people. That's going to turn off a lot of people. So there's a number of issues he has to confront going forward.
Well, we have to leave it there. Al Fromm, Craig Fuller, see you next week.